Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We are better than ever. It is the Muscle Mind and Money Podcast. Today, for episode number 24, we are with a very special guest, Mr. Ademar Caal. What's up, man?
How's it going?
How
Welcome.
are you?
Happy to be here.
Yes.
Finally.
One of the best radio voices in the world that he doesn't even know it.
Oh my gosh, no pressure.
I love how it's like, hey, yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
So smooth.
Ademar used to work with us at our former organization, and now he's on to bigger and better things because it's something really cool. You're working for who?
The Vancouver Whitecaps. So it's the football team there, or the soccer team here.
Let's keep it American and Canadian.
Yeah.
So what's it formally known?
Football club.
Yeah,
FC.
so
Wait.
it is a soccer club, like just again for the I guess for the I'm looking for the word lack of a better term, but it is Vancouver Whitecaps F.C.
FC.
Football club.
Football club.
Yeah.
But in the U.S., they call it soccer.
Yeah.
And then what do we call it in Canada?
Soccer.
We call it soccer.
Yeah.
But then what do they call it in Europe?
Football. And then all through like Mexico and down, it's football.
Football.
Or in Brazil, futebol.
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 Oh,
Futebol.
I like that.
I feel really inadequate at the table because 2 out of the 3 people here can speak multiple languages, and I can barely speak
Don't
English.
try the Brazilian way.
I'm not
You're
even
not
doing
gonna
it.
sound good.
The which? The Brazilian?
Yes, he cannot say futebol.
Futebol.
No.
It's just what happens with Portuguese is T's turn into ch for whatever reason, and D's turn into j, like J's.
Yeah.
So like Ronaldinho turns into like Ronaldinho.
You know, it's the and the he and the like the carrying the tongue. If you're born only speaking English, that tongue doesn't move like it should.
It's not impossible though.
my
There's plenty of in quotation mark gringos that learn either Spanish. Honestly, Spanish is not that difficult of a language. So
It's
Oh,
not.
don't challenge Dominic to
it
learning
really isn't.
another language.
This from the Greek mystique over here.
But I want to talk about
mystique.
soccer. This is so cool. We were so excited when you landed this job. And now it's even more exciting because of everything going on in the world with COVID and lockdown. And if you guys follow sports, you obviously know ESPN and what is it here? TSN, like they've had nothing to talk about for all of the quarantine because there's no sports going on. And now things are starting to roll out and unveil. And so it's a perfect time to have you on.
Yeah, but I mean, sports is such a big deal. It's community, it's culture, it's entertainment, and I mean, for us to be sportsless is never happened ever, in the sense of the world freezing. And then now it's, well, safety's involved with coming back in, and soccer being it's grown so much, especially the MLS. It's just bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I'm really curious to dive into some questions with you, Ademar, to figure out, because whatever they're doing, the rest of all the other leagues are doing too. I'm just sure I'm going to be a conspiracy theorist. All the commissioners are kind of talking to each other of like what's Major League Baseball doing, the NBA, NFL, and I'm sure you're privileged to only so much information.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell us all of it.
All
today.
the good secrets.
Yes, all the secrets that I know because I'm directly involved in all those conversations.
Exactly. You know them all. But just to kind of figure out how the sports world will look maybe this summer or the fall, tell us what we can know.
Well, with the MLS, the tournament, it's called Back to MLS is happening this month. So that's kicking off this month. As for the other sports, I really can't speak to any of those, but I mean that's going to be a step in the right direction, right?
Now, stadiums will be open?
No. My apologies. So that is going to be in Orlando, and that is in the Disney Sports Complex.
Yeah.
So that's there's no fans, none of that.
So it'll be like what the NBA is doing. They're going to hub out of one place.
Yeah.
Players will go in there. Now, in the MLS and Whitecaps, players are from around the world.
Yep.
So they'll all have to come. Will they have to stay on site?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is there's a lot of apprehension with Florida obviously being kind of like the epicenter of what's happening with COVID. But yeah, they have to stay on that Disney the football the sports complex.
Yeah.
And if a player is uncomfortable or doesn't want to play. Is that okay? Do they lose their contract? Are they kind of forced? What are the politics behind that?
Yeah, I don't know, but I did see a rumor that there were a few players that, for safety reasons, I think one of the big players, Carlos Vela, that plays for LAFC. I think his wife is pregnant, so he actually, again, I'm not sure if it's confirmed, but he might not actually play. So I do believe that there is something with safety, and they can kind of opt out.
Yes. And go ahead.
It's, I mean, this is these athletes from a selfish standpoint, as a fan and an observer, we want to see these games go on. Like, it's a big part of what we watch every weekend. I remember we had a mutual team member that would wake up at like 4 a.m. to watch soccer when Liverpool was playing. Like, it's like a thing, right? Like, to be void of having that is rough. But if you flip it not from a fan standpoint, from a player, they're being put in a really tough position to make a decision between potential family and at-home safety versus their career and their paycheck and what they want to be doing and what they love to do. I heard an NFL player on a talk radio podcast the other day that said, yeah, man, I want to go play. Put me on the field. Of course I want to go play, but I have 5 kids. So I also have to consider when I go home what I potentially am taking home with me. And that's a big, like, obligation of mine, is not just to think about myself and what I want, but for those around me.
Yeah, Ademar. So, what do you do for the Whitecaps?
So I'm in sales. So that's kind of my that's been my calling for the last little bit is sales, but it's specifically in premium sales. So I know we've actually been part of some of the premium experiences with the Whitecaps. So that's like suites, that's pitch side experiences, and sort of things like hosting and hospitality.
Yeah, I'll be an ambassador of it. So when we worked at the Steve Nash clubs, we bought some of those premium experiences. They were the best sports experience I can personally ever contest to. On the field, when we did the on the field box, we did one of the sky boxes. It was completely more interactive. We had the players come up and dine with us.
Yeah,
the coach was so cool.
We went to the press conference. I mean, it was by far a great experience. But you had said, this is before you switched working over there, was it's a growing sport. It's got to be more hospitality, more interactive than the big ones.
Yeah. I mean, you said it. Like, the reality is soccer, football. It's not number 1. It's not number 2 or even number 3 in North America. So you have to, in order to get people involved in it, outside of like getting young kids to play the sport and getting those young fans on board, it's like you have to go above and beyond, and you really have to fight for that like marketplace.
Yeah. How is it received here in Vancouver? We think it's a big deal. Yeah.
I mean, luckily for us, I'd say like the biggest competition is the Canucks, and the reality is like we're just, it's Canada, right? Like
it's
hockey.
Yeah,
it's always going to be hockey, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, Vancouver. I mean, the Vancouver Whitecaps, formerly known as the 86ers, have been a big part of Vancouver for. Like, I'm going to butcher it, like, since, like, the 70s, I think. And that's when they actually played in Burnaby at Swangard Stadium.
Wow. Yeah. Swangard Stadium. That's where we did our event. That's where the football team played originally.
That's where my dad used to take me to watch the 86ers.
The 86ers.
The 86ers, yeah.
And then they formally became the Whitecaps when the MLS was formed?
Yeah. Again, I'm not privy to, or I can't remember the full details of it, but they did become the Whitecaps when I think it was like 9 or 10 years ago when they actually came to the MLS, but they were the Whitecaps even before that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So you're in sales, and you're in premium sales.
Yes.
So you're selling the luxury experiences, but there's nothing to sell right now.
No.
What is it like? So we're going to go to Orlando. They're going to play in a bubble.
Yeah.
And how does that look for your job? Because I think that relates a lot to anyone that's listening in. Is A, when sport's going to turn back on? That's such a big part of my life, or at least the water cooler talk.
Yeah.
Now B is, well, what's the whole other parts of the ecosystem of sports that has to figure it out, except for we're just going to go play?
Yeah. Because
Whitecaps makes money more than just being on television.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, a big part of it is obviously the team playing and the TV rights and all that. But yeah, the stadium. I mean, that's really what. I mean, without the fans, like you've got nothing. You don't have a team, right? So, in terms of what I'm doing, it's it's a trial by fire. It's really interesting because it's not like I thought I was going to come in, I'm going to sell, and I was at the club or rather at the offices for 2 weeks, and I was able to make a few sales and kind of start to build those relationships. But now it's very much about like the service aspect, right? Like how do we keep the people that we already have on board, and how do we build value? And something that some of my leaders are teaching me with what we're doing specifically with hospitality is how do you make the ordinary extraordinary, right? Like how do you go above and beyond? Like what's that black swan? What's gonna make that with what's happening, right? It's there's you can't there's so many things that are outside of your control, right? So like how do you bring something special to your fans?
Give us an example. Sounds really good.
Yeah.
So how do you make the extraordinary for if I can't watch it right now?
Well, there's some things I legitimately cannot talk about.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some things.
This is where it gets good.
Yeah.
Oh man, if we were Howard
So
Stern, we'd pull it
is
out
this
of you.
something would it be fair to say that because you don't know what's happening with COVID, you don't even know if the season will start to when you project it'll start.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe Florida has more of an outbreak and they don't even play there. But what you have planned, which I understand and respect you can't release yet, is constantly evolving.
Yeah. I mean, really, again, if you think like the box, like we're constantly outside of the box, like that's like Zoom calls, right? So it's like happy hours. That's Instagram lives, like question and answer with some of the players, things like that. So those are things that we've done, but there's more things coming. But yeah, I mean, it's constantly evolving.
Yeah, so you can't play, so you have to focus on the fans.
That's it.
And their experience without the experience of the sport.
Yeah.
This is really interesting.
It's tough. It's tough because, like I said, like that's the reason these people are fans of this. Like that's why we have these people paying monthly dues or paying for like tickets and those things, right? So to not have that on-field product, you really have to step up. And for me, it's really cool because it means that I cannot be lazy. Right, wow. Like you have to really go above and beyond.
Wow.
So this is, I'm sure, really relatable to actually a lot of people right now. So I'm hearing you say I have to find a way to evolve to provide a service when I don't have my service.
Yeah.
So getting creative and keeping people engaged in different ways when you're unable to actually give them the service that they're used to within your business or facility. And I think for striving and thriving businesses that will come out of this really strong, they understand what you just explained. So in the current situation, we know it's short term. We don't know how long it's going to go, but we are in this whole predicament at this time.
Yeah.
And those companies, those clubs, those businesses that are going above and beyond to continue to give a service when their service cannot be given, when things reinvigorate and quote unquote go back to normal, I think your engagement with your fans and your community is going to be at an all-time high because you incorporated and did things that you wouldn't normally do in the quote unquote laziness that you didn't have to before. And so I love that you bring up the things that have happened are out of our control. And I think we need to reiterate that again for everybody because it can get really crappy sometimes thinking about the situation and being defeated. And we have to remember that nobody predicted this. Nobody created this. So the quicker you can get over it, the faster you're going to be able to pivot to go figure out how you can go above and beyond and turn your sales kind of into a service. I think we're seeing that with a lot of places. So even at the gym now, it's very much turned from being sales driven to being service driven because they're understanding for me to maintain the people I already have in my hands, I have to level up my service to a point that I make it valuable enough to stay, which is what you guys are having to do right now with actually no soccer being played and no stadium.
So for you personally, like you started a new career in a field you love. You love like the Whitecaps. You've talked about them forever. Like it's just part of your DNA.
Yeah.
So your own personal position with being in sales, and I know your company's constantly evolving, your brand.
Yeah.
What are you doing differently? Because if you think about it, when you started with the Whitecaps, it was probably sell the premium seats, service the clients, renew them, keep them going. And you've had to completely evolve even what you've done, even to with no direction I imagine, from the Whitecaps because they're trying to figure it out too. So what have you personally experienced?
Well, that's it. You said it best. There's no manual. There's no handbook on what to do. And like, hey, like when there's a pandemic, here's what you do. Like it just doesn't exist.
We're
right?
writing it now, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
I guess so. Hopefully this is lessons for everyone. But I mean, unfortunately, it was only 2 weeks at the actual at the office, and I was able to. I don't want to say sell, but like build relationships with a few new clients. But yeah, things that once I got past it and once I got over it, like you said, Nastasia, it's not even getting over it. It's just accepting, like, outside of my own personal responsibility of things that I can do and staying safe, like I can't affect what's happening in the States, right? I can't affect what's happening with just the whole world, right? So once you get past that, once you pass over that hurdle, it's okay, cool. Well, what do I do? Like, what can I do different? How can I build my own personal brand? How can I separate myself, right? So one of the things that I started was it's like a virtual pub, right? So in the void of again the typical day-to-day of sales, is we started running calls with like different teams in the world, right? So we did calls with like Manchester City. We did calls with Chelsea F.C. in England. We even did one with the Seattle Seahawks, right? So it was just idea sharing. Like, what are you guys doing? And what was really funny, what came out of that, is we realized, like, because it's in your own naivety, in your own box. You're thinking like, oh, these big teams must have the answer, and the reality is they don't, right? Like nobody really does, right? So anyway, out of one of those calls is we talked about a virtual pub, and again, there's all these ideas and all this like talk, frankly, right? And what I did is I actually took it into action. I started like a networking platform, right? So it's just literally a Zoom call. We have drinks, we do trivia, we do a bunch of really cool things, and it's you think of it like as a like what's the point of all that? Well, you know what, the reality is just getting yourself out there, doing something for the community, because I'm not getting like we don't charge for the service, if you want to call it as a service, but it's it's something fun to do, and if you think like business development is giving, and eventually maybe you need something, right? Again, I'm not going to pretend like it's all this altruistic endeavor, but yeah, it's been part of and even this, like the podcast, right? It's part of that, like bringing myself out of the comfort zone, which is something that, as we've discussed in the past, is something that I've gotten better, but it's still not it's far from my forte.
Yeah, from what you just explained, I don't think the audience has heard you, because it sounded like this is we or the Whitecaps gave you this. This is something you've personally done.
Correct.
You took the unknown of, hey, go from a sales to now a service.
Yeah.
And I'll use your expression, F.I.T.F.O.
Yeah.
Got to figure it the fuck out
Yeah,
without a handbook.
Yeah.
And you through I got a secondary question.
Yeah.
So you connect with the Seahawks and you connect with other big football clubs, and there was an idea to create a virtual pub.
Yeah.
And you just took that on your own.
Yeah. It naturally came out in conversation, but what it actually was is it was with Manchester City, which, if I'm not sure if you're familiar with Manchester City. It's
we're not that American, dude. Come on. Yeah, they're the Manchester. They're on Amazon.
What?
Right.
They were on Amazon. They were on that Amazon behind the scenes.
Yeah.
All or nothing.
All or nothing. That's it.
And who's the coach?
Pep Guardiola. Yeah.
They're like, release the Ferraris or park the buses and here, guys.
Yeah, it's like super neurotic energy.
I love that.
Yeah,
That was one of my favorite.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
I think it's funny. You actually turned me on to that show.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did.
I'll
give you credit.
Thank
I'll
you.
give you credit.
And there was a red team that they don't like. No, I'm joking. I'm screwing with Manchester United. Ho ho.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
No, what I was saying is we did that call with Manchester City, and then we were discussing how to keep the employees and like just the team members engaged, right? And we talked about we did like a virtual happy hour, but that was because we'd actually done one, but it was literally just the team members having a drink and shooting the shit, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah.
But then some of the folks from Manchester City were like, well, what about like doing that for our clients? Right. And then again, it turned into something else. Right. But then we did like a little recap call with like internally. And I'm like, well, why don't we do this just like for networking? Right. Because I'd also, I guess, to give a little more context is there's another really cool program called BNI, which is another networking platform. But there's a cost.
What's BNI stand for?
It's oh my God. Again,
Beiju, right?
Business networking. I can't remember.
Okay.
Can't remember. But anyway, but it's very well known. It's again, it's really, really, really good. But there's a cost associated with it. Again, and that's not to make it better or worse, but it's simply because they hold an accountability of like bringing in referrals and there's costs, right? So it makes sense that they're going to charge. But I'm thinking like, well, I did like a free session with them. It was really good. But I'm like, well, it's a very button up, right? So like I had to put on a suit at 7 a.m. and this sort of thing.
Dang.
So yeah. So again, really, really cool, right? But I'm like, why don't we just do something a lot more? I feel like right now there's an appetite for this, right? And me and my neuroses and me and my kind of like my anxiety, I'm like, oh, like it needs to be perfect. It needs to be perfect. It needs to be perfect. And finally, Tom, who's the manager of Premium Sales, is like, you know, in his Australian accent. I'm not gonna attempt the Australian accent. But
Why
like,
not? Give it a shot.
No. He's like, mate, just start it.
Mate, you tried
Yeah,
a little
mate.
bit.
No,
Mate.
that's all I'm gonna do. He's gonna kill me if you're. But mate, just start it. And I'm like, you know what? Again, like fuck it, just let's start it. The first one had like 5 people on, or like 3 or 4 people, right? But even for me as like a personal victory, it was like I did it, right? And we've had conversations after of like I didn't want to have you guys on like until I mastered it. And the reality is I'm never gonna master it, but I just did it, right? And I know that sounds so like basic, but just getting, you know, there's all this planning, and obviously there's massive value in planning, but just doing it and taking action, it's powerful.
Yeah. So you took it upon yourself.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's awesome. I think that this whole situation has pushed a lot of us out of our comfort zone, and there's people that have embraced it and tried new things, and you're okay to fumble and trip, and even if it's not totally perfect, at least you started. And I think that you're going to evolve into doing more and more cool things just because that's your attitude, right? And once you've tried it once, do you feel like now, okay, so I did this thing that was intimidating and I fumbled through, but I'm now pretty successful. Do you find it now easier to go start something else?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'll take this from very like an author and someone that I follow a lot. It's Jordan Peterson. He talks a lot about like he's a clinical psychologist, and he talks with like people that
From Toronto, right?
yeah from Toronto. But you know, he talks about like there's a lot of clients that come to him and patients that come to him have like some serious phobias, right? Like some like just like, you know, I know it sounds funny to some people, like, oh, I'm scared of like, I don't know, windows or something, right? And it sounds ridiculous, but it's like it's deep down in their psyche. But he talks a lot about like it's not that these people actually overcome their fears, is that they actually become braver. Right, so again, not to like, maybe it sounds corny, but not to be corny around that is that's kind of the attitude that I've had. Like, you know, I had my struggles with like mental health and anxiety and a bunch of other things, but it's the reality is you'll always have a certain amount of things, like a certain amount of fear. Like you'll always be scared with certain things, but it's being okay. Like, yeah, I'm scared or I'm nervous or this makes me uncomfortable, but just being braver to take that plunge.
I love that.
That's really good. A question before it evades me. Who had the idea to call the Seahawks or the Manchester City, like these bigger clubs? Because that's not normal.
Yeah.
Who had that idea?
So Man City and Chelsea, Tom, so who I mentioned, he has personal connections with some of these teams, and that for me, I think that was in my second month. I'm like, wow, like I'm talking like Chelsea, I'm talking to Manchester City, like that, like I'm just fanboying, right? But Seahawks, which actually was one of the better ones, that was I found the contact, and I reached out to one of the directors of sales. I can't remember his exact position, but that was one of the best calls that we had, because it's, again, you kind of back to like being in your box. Like we, you know, football is football. Like soccer, let's call it soccer for the sake of just confusion, is soccer, but putting like I guess getting some of that insight from like a massive football team and like the things that they do was incredible, because it's a different sport. It's a different sport, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that you learn as well as we talked about, like, hey, the reality is Vancouver and just Canada is a hockey country, right? Mm-hmm. Is in England, some of these teams, and it's not to take credit away, but like, you know, who Manchester City is, you know who Chelsea FC is, right? Those are, and frankly, you know who the Seahawks are, right? The Whitecaps are in their infancy when it comes to like, they're like babies, they're like toddlers, right? Mm-hmm. So we really have to fight for our space, we really have to fight for like the market share. And then, again, I've only been doing this for like 4 months now, and that's like quickly I'm like, yeah, this makes sense, and that's why for me it's almost a badge of honor. Is like we have to, we're like the salmon, like going upstream kind of thing.
Yes. You know, it's Nastasia brings us up, and you talk about the new competition is collaboration. And do you think, so I'll pose this question to you, Ademar, do you think, you know, with the current way things are with the pandemic and having to F.I.T.F.O it, which I think we'll get into before we wrap up, like figure it the fuck out, it's requiring collaboration to be competitive even, not to compete against someone, but to be competitive and thrive. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, we've actually so those are some of the teams that we did like outside of our league, but we actually we had like happy hours with Atlanta, right? Like Atlanta Falcons and Atlanta F.C. or sorry, Atlanta United. We've done ones with like Philly as well, right? So we've done a lot of calls with, and we've done a lot of idea sharing like internally in the league, right? But yeah, to your point, like 100% like collaboration in, especially what everyone's going through right now, and like, you know, small businesses that are like failing and all that, like it's almost like you have to do it in order for it to survive or to thrive.
But don't you also feel like we all worked in our last industry together, and I'll just say it how it is, like that was Shark Tank, cutthroat, like I mean, I would collaborate in order to help my team get better, but there wasn't really a collaboration in a genuine interest for anyone else to have success. Like I wanted to take your members, not share our members.
Well, that's the business model, though. It was predatory.
Yes, that's how you
it's
put
very
it.
predatory.
Yeah.
So for all of us, I think this whole collaboration, and there's enough food for everybody, and your ability to collaborate, to compete, these are all really new things. I mean, really for me, I'm not going to speak for the two of you, but it's a really different thing. But now I really feel like if I can help you, I want to help you. And if I can learn something from you that I can implement, I'm never going to steal an idea, because even if I get an idea, I change and make it my own.
Sure.
And you can take my idea and change and make it your own. Like when we talk about that kind of cross collaboration, but I think in the times now with everybody, you said, you know, businesses going out of business, restaurants closing, nobody wants to see that happen. It's like you have a spot in your heart that you just want everyone to be successful.
Yeah.
So if I get invited to a call or I have somebody ask me a question, not even for 1 second do I think about not helping. You know, which then also makes it easier for you to ask for help. So like in your new industry, is that like an industry thing, or do you think it kind of evolved because of the situation with COVID?
You know what? That's a really good question. I mean, like I said, I've only been in the industry for 4 months now, so it's tough to tell which of the two it is. But one of the things that I just noted as you were speaking is back to like fitness. It's like, yes, you can be like back to like, you know, you're competing against like one club or one company versus another company. Is yes, technically you could have memberships to multiple places, but typically you pick your gym, right? So it's not the exact same. Whereas sports, if we talk like sports here in Vancouver, is you can be a fan of the Canucks, a fan of like the Lions, and you can be a fan of the Whitecaps, right?
True.
And like you're like, although you're like maybe there might be a little bit of rivalry, but it's not like you're still representing your city because there's that like loyalty. So it's not the exact same thing. But to your point, it might very well be a sports thing where there's no competition, because again it is very much like where it's geographical. Right, so it's not necessarily the same.
Yeah, I find it more industry now from where you're collaborating. You need the food industry to survive.
Yeah.
So everyone has to work together. The sports industry has to survive. Not just a team, a club, a business, a brand. That's when now it's the industry. We're all fighting for the industry.
Yeah.
So it's created this collaboration. You're starting to experience that now in your own workplace. And then you started to then, you know, I'm taking anything on. My manager doesn't have to tell me to do it. I'm just doing it. And it's really cool to hear that you're working for a place. They're like, you have carte blanche to just do it. And if it doesn't work, at least we know it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I think that's an approach I know we're taking right now, but everyone should be taking right now.
Absolutely.
What didn't work before, because what happened in January, and life in January isn't life in July, and we just need to figure that out.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, you taught this, and I think this is kind of like just you could tattoo it somewhere. Your F.I.T.F.O.
Yeah.
F.I.T.F.O.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been your mantra, your motto, and it's been like this fuel. But I think it's I'm just reading it right now off your face is like it's thriving in you.
Yeah.
Explain to people what that is.
So fit for the number one, I think we've had this conversation. Like I didn't create Fit.F.O. Like it's not something that
Dominic
I thought you did,
made it
though.
up.
Oh, no.
I thought you
He
did.
was so
I was
proud
looking
of
to
you.
copyright it and
Yeah.
trademark
Yeah.
it, and then I was going to sell it back to you, but no, it didn't
Okay,
work.
well,
But
you were the creator for
you taught me it.
Sure.
Dominic learning.
yeah, maybe I was. What's the word I'm looking for? I represent Fit.F.O. Right? I
Okay.
represent Fit.F.O. I must write somewhere.
F.I.T.F.O. is my gang, my
Yeah,
club,
it's
my
my-
FC.
Yeah. But yeah, the way I see Fit.F.O. It's a good thing and a bad thing, right?
Okay.
Fit.F.O. for me is because you think like we talk a little bit about planning, right? Planning is obviously important, and you cannot fail the plan, otherwise you're gonna fail, right? You know, we've talked about that a
Yes.
billion times, but there's I think there's something either inside you or not inside you, and maybe you can learn it. I don't know, right? I'm not the scientist on Fit.F.O. but but it's when all else fails, when everything goes to, again, excuse my language, like when everything goes to shit, like nothing is happening, like it's just you're sitting there, you're feeling sorry for yourself, and again, it's very relevant in what's happening right now. It's like, you know, I was talking to a good friend of mine, and it's, you know, it's not that you take comfort in that everyone else is going through the same thing, but it's like you're not unique in that situation. Obviously, some of us are better off, and you know, some of us are blessed, and so on and so forth. But it's when you're cornered, when you're in like a tough situation, like do you stick to what, I guess, do you stick to like the rules and you know, I'm not saying like breaking the rules or anything like that, but do you stick to convention, right? Like that's kind of what I'm trying to say is like, do you stick to convention or do you break out of that and do you just figure it out? Like you 9 times out of 10, I would argue, you know the answer, you know what you need to do to get yourself out of that situation, and that's the spirit of Fit.F.O.
F.I.T.F.O. with the applied against, if you want to call it, you know, mathematically with time. So you figure it out. To figure it the F out, you got to have time and patience to go with it. Because the time it takes to figure it out, you got to have so many failures and learnings to then bring it back.
And the one thing I would add is sometimes overthinking it, overanalyzing, that's your biggest enemy, right? And you cannot be afraid to be wrong. Like you just can't. And again, this is repetition. A lot of things, these things have been said a million times, but it's similar to like learning a new language, right? Because I'm technically, I was not born, but I was raised bilingual, but I learned a third language just through like conversation, right?
I thought it was to land your wife.
Well, she spoke Spanish.
She spoke
She
Spanish.
spoke Spanish. She spoke Spanish. She still does speak Spanish. But in the process of learning that third language is one of the things that I learned. The keys to learning a new language, it's not, again, don't be afraid to make a mistake. You're gonna sound like an idiot. The reality is just the realization, like you're gonna sound like an idiot, right? You're gonna, you know, make a mistake on the tense. You're gonna mispronounce a word, right? It's a fact. You're gonna do it, right? And being okay with that fear, right? And again, just being brave, just being above that. That's it. Like that's the secret.
I love it.
That's the secret.
We are all in this Fit.F.O. together. I think that's something really unique about the time where you were like, okay, yes, some people are better off than others, but like we're all in the storm together. I think it's a unique time in history that this whole pandemic has actually leveled us and united us to be more empathetic to each other, to be more patient with ourselves, to be more brave with ourselves, to be more collaborative and helpful to others, because it's like nobody was exempt from this. But we are exponentially proud of everything that you're doing and watching you continue to grow and find your way and persevere, even when the circumstance has been a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
So where can people find you? What's your Instagram? Tell us virtual pub. What do you got launching?
Is this the plug?
Yes.
The plug
it's
section
free.
here?
We have like 2 listeners, so you have a 50-50
What?
chance.
We just hit 2,500 downloads. Are you kidding? You will
I'm
be
just
famous.
I'm bragging
Tell-
humble. I used to always flex. Now I'm being humble brag or whatever it's called.
Tell our friends.
Where can they find you?
So there's a few places you can find me. My MySpace is, no, I'm kidding. I've got Instagram. It's Ademar 305, and then There's the virtual pub if you want to email me. My email's there, or just DM me. Honestly, I would say let's keep it simple. Instagrams. I'm always on my Instagram.
Spell Ademar for me.
ADEMAR
305.
305.
At Instagram, DM you.
Yeah.
And learn more about the virtual pub.
Yep.
Are you doing podcasts too?
Yeah. Funny you mentioned it. That's going to launch soon.
Oh,
it's going to launch soon.
People could get in on the ground level here.
Okay. So message Ademar if you want in on the virtual pub to meet other people and network.
Just want to talk football, soccer.
Just figure it the fuck out.
Just whatever.
Yeah, just come by.
Shoot the shit. I'm here.
All right. And that is a wrap for today, everybody.
gotta go.
Thank you, Ademar.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.